Hola besties, welcome back to my channel. This is my second time recording this video because the first time was a hot mess. Okay, I did not like it, and I'm a Capricorn, I'm a perfectionist. I like things a certain way. If it's not a certain way, then we're not doing it. It's done. So here we are again. If you've never seen my face before, my name is Javell. I make book-related content and I also make lifestyle content, and it's all really cute and good. So if you like good vibes, if you like good videos, if you like books, you should definitely subscribe to me. But today I have my February reading wrap-up, which I'm really excited for because I did not do a reading wrap-up for January. And you know, it's a new year. So this is my first reading wrap-up for 2023. I'm really excited because I read some really good books. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We're gonna start with one of my favorite authors, who's Elle Kennedy, and I read The Risk by Elle Kennedy, and it is part of the Feburary series. I just finished Off Campus series by her, and I love her writing style so much. I love her college romances. I love her spicy books, and so I definitely wanted to get into the Feburary series. So I believe this is the first book in the series, and it is The Risk by Elle Kennedy. And this is about Brianna. I think her name was Brianna. I always do such a bad job at remembering the main character's name, but this book is about Brianna, or Brianne, and Jake Connolly, and they go to rival schools, and Brianna is the daughter of the head hockey coach of her school. So her and Jake don't really like each other, but he low-key finds her really attractive. So she goes to this interview for an internship, and she can immediately tell like the interviewer is like not gonna hire her because he has like misogynistic tendencies. And so she like briefly mentions like Jake Connolly's name, and all of a sudden the interviewer is like, ears open, he's listening. So she like lies to the interviewers like, I'm dating Jake Connolly, like he's my boyfriend. And so now the interviewer is like, oh, like you should bring him to these events and we'll see if you actually get the internship. So now she has to like convince Jake to be her fake boyfriend, and he agrees because he does find her very attractive. So he like proposes this plan, like for every fake date we go on, we have to go on a real date. And that's basically the synopsis of this book. I really like Elle Kennedy's writing because like her books aren't super serious. Like they're really fun reads. They're light-hearted reads, which I really like. They're really spicy reads, and I feel like for me, I like that light element because not every book I read needs to be life-changing. Like sometimes I really want a light book that doesn't like stress me out, and I always get that in these books. It's a little spicy, it's really good. I would say like age rating maybe like 18 plus. It's still really cute. I really like it. I would rate this like I'd say like 3.5 stars. I also read two Collen Hoovers, but the first one I read is Finding Perfect by Collen Hoover, and this cover is so freaking cute. It really does give Valentine's Day vibes, which, you know, February is like the month of love. But Finding Perfect is the what's it called when it's like a, what are these books called when it's like the last book? Novella. This is a novella, so it's only like 80 pages or like 8 chapters or something like that. And this is the novella for the Hopeless series, and it's also the novella for Finding Cinderella, which I love that book so much. That book was so freaking cute. But it basically has all the characters from those series. So it has like Sky, it has Brecken, it has Daniel, Six, and Holder, and it really just ties up the entire series, but it mainly focuses on Daniel and Six. In Finding Cinderella, we know Six had to make some really hard decisions, and so in this book we kind of see her dealing with like the gravity of the situation and just really having a really hard time with the decision she had made. And so Daniel is really trying to fix it for her, and he's also really just trying to understand her a lot better because he doesn't really know her that well, I feel like. So we get to really see how they resolve the issues in this book. It was like a really nice way to tie up the entire series, and so I really liked this. It was a really quick read, and the cover is really cute, so I'm glad to add this to my Hoover collection. But I would rate this book like I'd say like 4 stars. It was okay. And I also read Maybe Now by Collen Hoover, and this is the second book in the Maybe series. It's the second book for Maybe Someday, which I'm already just gonna tell y'all, I do not like the maybe series. Like, I just do not like the cheating trope, and it's like very prominent in these, and the characters are just so unlikable. But this book basically picks up where the first book ends, and we get to see, what are the main characters' name? Ridge and Sydney. We get to see Ridge and Sydney. They're finally in a relationship with each other, and you know, I just don't like Sydney. Ridge is okay, but also like it takes two to tango, so I really just don't like them together. But Ridge and Sydney are now in a relationship, and Sydney's realizing like, oh, he still has Maggie in his life, which in the first book Maggie was his girlfriend, and Sydney kind of stole Ridge from her, still in Ridge's life, and Sydney's like very insecure about their relationship together, and she just doesn't really know like what's going on between them, and she just is having a really hard time with that. And you know the saying, like, you lose them how you get them? That's kind of what's going on in this book. Is just her really dealing with the fact that like she kind of stole this girl's man. So that's Baby Now by Collen Hoover. I'd rate this like a 2-star. I just feel like the series was really needed. Like, maybe someday was good, but like we didn't need 3 books. And then continuing on with the theme of love, I also read All About Love by Bell Hooks, and we all know she is a legend, and this book basically just does a deep dive into love and what love really is and how we should practice love as a verb. And I feel like I learned so much about love from this book. And you know, I usually don't read books like this, but I feel like this was very well needed, and also just made me like think about how people who've loved me in my life just didn't really, because like they didn't practice it as a verb. I definitely recommend, especially if you're a lover girl like me. Like, I just love love, and I love just understanding it, and this kind of just really does a deep dive on love in general, and just like, it's just so good. Everyone should read this at some point in their life, because it will just completely change how you love, and it will change your entire perspective on love in general. So this is a 5-star read for me. Then I also read The Gilded One by Namina Forna. I think that's how you say it. And it's a part of the Deathless series, and I'll read the synopsis of my phone because I feel like I will not do this book justice by giving a synopsis from my brain. And this is kind of like a fantasy, like a YA fantasy, and that's really different for me because I only read romance, contemporary romance, or thrillers or murder mysteries. I do not read fantasy, so this is like my first fantasy book. 16-year-old Dika lives in fear in anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she will become a member of her village. Already different from everyone else because of her unnatural intuition, Dika prays for red blood so she could finally feel like she belongs. But on the day of the ceremony, her blood runs gold, the color of impurity, and Dika knows she will face a consequence worse than death. Then a mysterious woman comes to her with a choice: stay in the village and submit to her faith, or leave to fight for the emperor in an army of girls just like her. And at this point, like, when they found out that she was impure, they were like torturing her, like attempting to kill her, and I think they actually killed her a few times, but because like she has these powers, she kept coming back alive to fight for the emperor in an army of girls just like her. They are called the Ilaki Near Immortals, with rare gifts, and they are the only ones who can stop the emperor's greatest threat. Knowing the dangers that lie ahead, yet yearning for acceptance, Dika decides to leave the only life she's ever known. But as she journeys to the capital to train for the biggest battle of her life, she will discover that the great walled cities hold many surprises. Nothing and no one are quite like what they seem to be, not even Dika herself. Doesn't this sound so good? And this is a fantasy, like YA fiction, young adult fiction. It has themes of like feminism. It is such a good book. Then the next book I read is Twisted Hates by Anna Huang, and this is book 3 in the Twisted series. These books, yeah, it's in a series, but it can be read as standalones. So this book is basically about Josh Chen and Jules Amber Rose, and they really don't like each other, and Josh really just doesn't like her because he cannot charm her because he's like very attractive, he's a doctor, and like all the girls like fall for him, but like not Jules. And he also doesn't like Jules because she's like friends with his sister, and he believes like Jules always get his sister in trouble, whatever. So Josh Chen is basically Ava from the first book's older brother. So we get to see his story in here. And so he doesn't like Jules doesn't like him, but he's like really attracted to her. So he proposes like an enemies with benefits situation, and she agrees, which whatever, she agrees. But what I like about this book is that like we also got to see like their individual lives, because Josh is still with the fact that like his dad literally tried to kill his sister and now his dad's in jail. So he's dealing with that. He's dealing with like his entire relationship. We also got to see like inside of his job with him being a doctor and how he's like dealing with that, because a lot of books, I feel like when these people have these careers, you never hear them talk about work. You never see them at work. You never see with them deal with the consequences of what goes on at work. So I really like this aspect of this book. And then we also got to see Jules dealing with her ex-boyfriend, trying to blackmail her. I just really like that they had complex lives outside of each other, which a lot of like romance books, you don't see them like outside of their relationship, you know? Does that make sense? I hope so. So I really like this book. It was really spicy. It was like a roller coaster. Very spicy, very fun, really just interesting in general. I rate this like a 4.5 stars. I love Josh Chen. I love Jules and Rose together. Some of the things he said to her, I was like, hold on. I feel like enemies to lovers is not my favorite trope, because like you cannot say these mean things and then now you love me. No. If you guys have read this book, please leave your comments below. If you've read any of these books, leave a comment below and let me know what you think, because I personally really like this book. When I posted it on my Instagram story, people had some opinions and they were interesting. Moving on, I read the most insane murder mystery thriller book, and it is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And you guys, if you like anxiety, this is a good book for you. So this book is basically about a married couple, but the husband's having an affair and his mistress dies. His mistress dies at their lake house and he was the last person to see her. So now he's on trial for murder, right? And the only lawyer, the best lawyer in like the DC area, is his wife. So she's like defending him in court, even though like he cheated on her. Mind-blowing, crazy. And what I love most about this book is that like the lake house that they had was based in Virginia. I think it was like based in like Arlington or Nova or something like that, which I feel like anytime I read like murder mysteries or like any kind of like paranormal books, they're always like set in Virginia, which is so funny because Virginia is low-key spooky. His wife is defending him, and that's basically the synopsis of the story. I used to watch a lot of true crime, so I kind of know like the signs to look for. So I already knew who the murderer was, but it was just like this book kept me at the front of my seat. This book had me like going back to read it even though I had things to do. It's so good. It's really good. I loved it. I love how they put like random things in there to kind of throw you off from who the killer was, but I had it. So I rate this book like a 4.7. I don't want to give it a 5-star because I'm being very stingy with books that I give 5 stars to. Then I also read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and I was really excited to read this. So shout out to Kiana Naomi for the book recommendation. But this book is basically about 2 authors who first met when they were teenagers, and they were together for like a week, and they had like the most insane chemistry together. But then they got separated and they didn't see each other for 15 years. So fast forward 15 years later, they are reconnected because now they're both famous authors and everyone around them can just feel their energy. Their chemistry is still very intense. And this book is basically just about them trying to figure out what they have going on. And now the main character has a daughter, and this book just has like a lot of like really good elements in it. Like it talks about like blackness, being Creole, it talks about like chronic illness, it also talks about addiction, it talks about like parental trauma, it talks about breaking generational curses, it talks about being Black in, you know, your careers or just like in general in America. I don't know, it's just like really good. I really liked this book. It also does like present day and then the past, so it does like a back and forth where we get to see what really happened between them, which sometimes I hate that, but in this book it was just very nice. And I don't know, you just get to time travel with the characters. So I would rate that book like a 4.5 stars. And then the last book I read in February is In 5 Years by Rebecca Sturl. I think that's how you say it. And this book is basically about Danny Cohan. And Danny, she has basically everything going for her. And the book opens up where she is going to an interview, and it's an interview for her dream job. And she already knows she's gonna get this job. She leaves the interview and she goes to dinner with her boyfriend, and he proposes to her. So she's having like the perfect day. She's having the best day ever. And so she like goes home, she goes to sleep, and she has a dream. And it fast forwards like 5 years. She wakes up in an apartment. It's not the apartment she currently lives in with her boyfriend or her fiance. She is sleeping next to a completely different man that's not her fiance, and she's freaking out. So she has that dream for like an hour. She wakes up, and moving on, like she just cannot shake the dream because it felt so real and realistic, and she just cannot shake it, and she just doesn't really know what's going on. She feels like it was like a vision, and so the book is like her trying to figure it out. Fast forward 5 years later, she meets this guy. She meets the guy, but he's dating someone very close to her, and that's basically all I can say. But the book is insane. Because first I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be a romance book, but it is not a romance book. It does have romantic elements, but until now, like I finished this book like maybe a week ago, and I still don't know what happened. I'm still very confused because why did we kill off certain characters so certain people could be together, but then they still weren't together? And then some random doctor like enters at the end. If you've read In 5 Years, please explain it to me. A lot of people, I've just been seeing very mixed reviews. Like you either really love this book or you think it was stupid. I see people say it's like boring. I literally tore through this book. It was so interesting. I loved it so much, but I'm still very confused. I'm still very confused as to why things turned out the way they did, but I did think it was a really good book, and it was such a page turner. So I would rate this like maybe like a 4 stars, 4.5. That's In 5 Years by Rebecca Sturl. And then I ended the month reading Rival by Penelope Douglas, but I didn't finish, so that will be in my March reading wrap up. But that's pretty much it for my February reading wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you've read any of these books, please comment down below and tell me your opinion, okay? Or recommend a book for me, because I'm going book shopping in like the next week. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more. I'll see you guys in my next video.